start? Where do we
Yeah, that's what I'm like. Where do we start?
First of all, it's just been a lot. I'm gonna just start with me. So much. Even with looking at my clientele, what's going on. Pivot is the word.
Yes, pivot
right?
is the word.
So a lot of people in just different industries, from music to sports, really was tested to see not only is it for you if you establish the longevity, but also how serious, like passionate wise, because we use that word and we got to define it. Listen, the word passion has been defined. So a lot of people think, I think they mix passion up with an extreme like, or, an extreme attraction. Sure. I was telling people, like, even one of the powercasts I did, that passion is something that actually sinks its teeth in you. When you don't want to do something, when you actually want to walk away from it, but it's something in it that says you can't quite walk away. You know?
Well, we talked about this once before, where we're talking about passion versus commitment. Man. And I had a student who said to me, if I'm passionate, I'm committed. And I'm like, no, it's two different things. He says, nope, if I'm passionate, I'm committed. I'm like, no. And we went around about 20 minutes where I tried to get across to this kid that there's a difference between passion and commitment. And quite frankly, I didn't get it across to him. So that night I went home, I was a bit perplexed sitting on my couch. And I'm thinking, man, how do I tell this kid the difference between passion and commitment? And this thought came to me. And the thought was, if passion were a substitute for commitment, there would not be so many fatherless children. One night of passion versus a lifetime of commitment. You could get one night of passion, right? Create that baby, but then you got a lifetime of commitment to deal with it beyond that point. So I couldn't wait to get back to class the next day and say, if passion were a substitute for commitment, there would not be so many fatherless children. He looked at me and I just dropped the mic, like, just
drop it.
That's a difference, son. Passion and commitment are two different things, but I couldn't get it across to him. For some reason, he was thinking it was the same thing, and I couldn't even figure out how to tell him the difference.
And that's why it's important for us to define words like we do. Sometimes we just use these words so loosely, define them. What does it even mean? Like, you know what I mean? Like there's context to what we say. And that's why a lot of times I think we feel defeated or we give up, because do we even understand what we're saying? Do we understand what we're writing down, what we're doing?
Well, even then the power of words and how those words impact us, things like vision boards and all of that sort of stuff, and speaking things into existence. People don't realize that stuff is, very, very true. It's real.
It is. About to ask you that. What do you think about the vision boards? I have vision boards around, and then I went and got this, what do you call it? It's like a portfolio thing. I carry this leather thing, and you open it, and I literally write things, and I'll either draw things or I'll Google certain pictures to give me that visual of where I'm trying to go. But I always qualify it with this or better, because one thing I learned is, yes, we're limited from our experience, from what we can see, when we can't see, we're limited. And I never, because of the power of words, like you said, I never want to speak something to my limitation.
Sure.
Right.
Well, the crazy part about the vision board, and I was going to say, to your point, you have to be very specific. So I had a car, this particular car on my vision board. I had it as a 4-door with a particular set of rims. I ended up getting the car, and it was a 2-door with the same rims. So I was like, man, I got to be specific. And I hadn't really even realized it until I went back and looked at the vision board, and I was like, what? I was like, wait a minute, that's the car right there. But it was a 2-door as opposed to a 4-door. So I think you got to be very specific, but the universe will conspire on your behalf and will work to make things happen on your behalf, for sure.
I agree. And that's why I always qualify with this or better.
Yeah, I like that. I got to add that to
whatever it is that I write. I put that this or better. So that better is already permission. I gave it, that permission to, create itself. And I was just having a conversation with someone about that power that we do have. The one thing that sets us apart from every creation is that we can have ideals, things that's just in this head, and we can actually take them to make tangible things. Everything around us is, an ideal that is tangible. So we have power of words,
correct.
Either direction. That is we have the will, man, to we look around and we're asking, because I ask this question, what are we doing? Why? We ask why a lot. We are the why. I got a hard answer to my question, when I was having this conversation with my mom, and, you know, sometimes it feels like we're just victims, right?
Yes.
Just existing in these, you know, different realms, but we are creating what we're experiencing.
No
And
question.
the part that gets heavy is we have our individual thoughts and create our individual space experience, but our collective conscience, we can't escape from it. We all are affecting each other as well.
Absolutely. So for believers, right, this whole thing started with 4 words: let there be light. So you talk about the power of words, right? That's just it. Let there be light. Boom.
Let there be light. And that's our words all the time. Let there be, whatever we say, whatever we say behind it. So true. So true. Segueing into that. So when we would look at that, and you're just looking at just the direction we're going in our industry, especially like just in music. So many people, some people are flourishing and some people are struggling. From my experience, I'm just watching those, going back to those with passion and commitment, going back to what we were saying. I'm watching those who are like, this is a part of my fiber. This is not like a separate thing.
It's part of my DNA.
This is part of my DNA. That's what I'm seeing, right? And I had got certified to be an NFL agent because I was.
Oh yeah, congratulations! I saw that too.
Well, might want to hold off on the congratulations. No, because I did it because the people around me definitely encouraged, listen, you're representing us on this level. Why don't you, be registered so that way you can continue to represent us on higher levels. But again, as soon as I got certified, pandemic hit. And what I learned and what other people learned too is, where's the commitment? The one thing in anything that I do, I'm here to give you whatever strengths that I have, whatever gifts I have, but I'm not here to make you believe and do things that you have to do, right? So with that was a test for a lot of individuals when the pandemic hit, especially in sports and music and stuff like that. And the one thing I walked away, I decided to walk away because I seen different layers.
Sure. You seen behind the wizard. You got a chance to look
behind the wizard. Hey, that was my TED talk. Yes, I seen behind. Listen, move that curtain and move the mask. We're talking about the Wiz. So it's like, no. And that's, how do you deal with that? That's what I'm looking at when we're in a field of service and we're dealing with people and we want to motivate them. They have talent, they have this, but a lot of times individuals want you to do it for them.
I liken it to there being a puddle on the ground. You lay over it so that they can walk over your back and not get their feet wet. And then you stand up dripping wet and they look at you and go, how'd you get so wet? They don't even realize that they just walked on your back. And you're like, oh, never mind. They don't even realize that they just really walked over your back.
Don't even.
But the thing is, with what we do, you almost have to be prepared for that, because in a lot of cases, it's a thankless job. I mean, I had a client who literally, I went to the extreme of getting his name added to the credits for a project, which in essence led to him being nominated for a Grammy. And he got up there and didn't even thank me. So I'm like, wow. But it just happens. So you just almost have to be okay with it, because that's part of what we do. And you have to see their successes as your own and sort of live them vicariously that way, I think.
And so that, I think I could swallow, right? I'm like, okay, I'll charge it, to the head, not the heart. But the part that makes me reevaluate a lot of things is just the mindset, the mentality of individuals. You had said this before, like even in industries, fame versus fortune versus, a lot of people, and it's not just music, whatever it is, want to get into it for the thing, the glitz, the glam, your favorite thing, big,
little word show, big word business.
Exactly. And I use that. I had put that in my book when you had said that, because that's so true. It's like, that's the part where I find for myself, the patience is very thin. And that's where I'm very candid and have the strong conversations about it. When do we learn? When does the light switch come on? You've been doing this for many years and we've churned so many people out. When do we learn from what preceded us on what direction we need to be going. So the thankless, I get it. But to want to walk over your back on the puddle, no, I could teach you. I can tell you how to get the right shoes. I can show you how to do the walk, but it's not, I don't know.
Well, the fundamental flaw I've seen with most artists is they want to be famous. And so that's been the biggest issue that I've seen. But what I've done to sort of counteract all of it is to figure out how to take care of myself in the process as well. So I don't know that I necessarily understood that part in the earlier stages of my career. So, and what I mean by that specifically is in the ownership aspect of it, because it's going to all boil down to who owns what and who controls what.
Yes.
And so if you don't have any ownership, it's the equivalent of writing your name in the sand versus writing your name in concrete. And so when you don't own anything, you're writing your name in the sand, tide comes in, it washes it away. When you write your name in concrete, when it dries, you're there in perpetuity, which is one of my favorite words.
Absolutely. There's a lot of contract favorite words too. So my thing is with the ownership, segue into that, then we had this artists hear this conversation. It's not new, right?
Sure.
We're hearing some of the legends come out and they're fighting for things. People are finally getting stuff. Did you hear about MC Lyte finally got her name?
Yes.
Ownership
I saw
of her
that.
name.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, I posted that on Facebook.
You did? Yes. So things like that, where people are coming back, either ownership in masters, ownership in names, you hear these stories over and over again. But when you still have different people coming in, it still is almost like either the mindset is, well, that's not going to be me. That was their story 100,000 times. Yeah. Or I could just worry about that later.
Yep.
I just need to, get in. And sometimes it could be a good or a bad thing. I mean, what do you think about that? Like,
no, I think it's just like you said, people almost feel like it's not going to happen to them. But I think most of the time they're just trapped in that word show. And so they're not really seeing the business aspect, because at a certain point, like, it's a young person sport. And so at a certain point, you age out in a sense. And when you age out, then now you're looking for those assets, but you don't have them because you leveraged yourself out of the business early in your career. A lot of times I see someone that's done a deal at 20, 21, 22, and they've in essence leveraged themselves out of their career already, and they haven't even gotten to the point where they're not as cool anymore, they're not as pretty anymore, they're not as interesting. Those times come, but people just don't see that. And so, I think that's where the issue comes in at.
Yeah, but I'm just wondering when is it gonna be shaken up? I mean, you see how it always ends. I mean, you see, we can talk about our top people. What names do you want to throw? You see how it ends. A lot of them, fortunately, can fight and end a little better, but you see no one's exempt. So when do we? I
don't know that it ever, you hear people talking about that the labels will go away, but I don't think that happens because people want to be famous and the labels are rich. And so they have all the money, and so they can supply that opportunity. So
absolutely. I don't see that going away. One, because listen, when you are that rich and you got your feet in it like that, you're going to find ways to pivot. You're going to find ways to keep adapting. And which I've learned, and I've tell my clients too, labels is not all bad. A 360 is not all bad. What you do with what you have can make it a good or bad thing. One, you have to know who you are, right? What can be bad is when you have someone who shuns away from all that stuff, and you're a person who don't have the wherewithal to do anything for yourself. It's bad for you. You need to go with machines if that's what you need to do. You just need to understand what you are involving yourself in. And I have these conversations all the time. That's why I tell them, when we sit down and look at a contract, for me personally, I don't believe there's such thing as bad contracts. It's you accepting the bad situation. The words didn't magically change when you signed it. You see what I'm saying? Right. You just have to know what you want. You have to know how to play chess. Sometimes, like I even tell my clients, sometimes you have to give up something to get something, right? It's not always just one size fit all. I'm going straight in. I'm not giving you anything. This is what it looks like. No, here's my catalog. I tell them to put it in categories. What are some things that you're willing to completely give up, walk away, and probably get some pennies off of it? What are some things that you want to co-own? And what are some things you just not trying to walk away from? Know how to play the entire game, but labels is not, they're not going nowhere. They're not bad. You need to understand their position and then understand your position. Look at Alicia Keys.
Yeah. Yeah.
She just now 20 years. She finished. She did the last album she just did, the Keys, Locked and Unlocked. That was her final commitment. She figured out how to navigate those 20 years. Fortunate for her, she started young, stayed in it, longevity. She's coming out where she's still youthful, and now she could segue and do what she want to do. Someone who made it work, right?
Yeah, you never get what you worth, only what you negotiate, and your negotiation power is in what you own, and that's your leverage. But like you mentioned, I don't think the 360 is a bad thing. I think it's whether or not the labels add value or not. And so if you want to participate in the merch, that's fine, but why don't you pay for half of the t-shirts? And then I'll pay for half, and we'll really form a real partnership. You know, you want to be a part of the tour, no problem. Why don't you give me some tour support? Because I got to pay for this bus. I got to take care of this back line. I got to do this other. So let's just form real partnerships if we're going to really participate in the 360 model. I don't think the idea makes perfect sense to me. It's just whether or not they add value.
No, that's it right there. I like the word that you're using, like partnership. Understand that you have someone doing something that either you're not willing to do, you can't do, or you need somebody with you to help you do it. If you fall in those categories, cool. Now, if you get someone who just locks themselves into you, and no matter what you're doing, they're just sitting there and they're just waiting to get off anything you do, then that's a different story. But that's different. That's a conversation you have, right? That's a conversation you have before you sign a dotted line. So those are the conversations that I sit down with people, but they're scared, Cap. Like people are, when you said negotiation, it sound all good and people start in the beginning. Listen, they start, let's do that. Yep. And nope. This is where I stand. And when I say I've represented some of the biggest of the to the just starting out, and the got broken down when it comes to that negotiation, and the other side may be adamant on what they want, or they probably not, and they want to test it. But a lot of people, they're scared to test how far can I really go.
Yeah. Well, a lot of it too, for me, is always about perspective, right? So when we're sitting in the room, when you're looking across the table, that's the big bad wolf in essence, and you're one of the three little pigs. And you're looking at that person, and he's looking back at you going, hey, listen, I devour pigs. That's what I do. I blow houses down. Why are you looking at me like I'm not a bad guy?
That's what I do.
But you as the little pig, you're going, he was biting at my hooves. He forced me into this straw house, this hay house. Can you kill him, please? It really just depends on how you look and what's happening in the room. But I think everybody has a valid point depending on where they sit in the room and what their perspective is. So what I try to do is I try to get in the seat of everyone in the room so that I can see it from different perspectives. You know, because ultimately, once you figure that out, then you can sort of, you know, part of my UN journeys, you know, working with the UN has been about special interests. Right. And so you have all these people around the world, all these different countries, and we're coming together in one room to all agree upon something. But it's really a matter of what are your interests? What are my interests? And how do we find the way to make each of us work out to where we get what we want in this scenario? Right. And that's really, it all boils down to special interests. Everybody has that thing that makes them tick. And what is that? And you figure that out, and you figure out how to accommodate it.
No, I completely agree. And that's the huge thing in negotiation, is that you really need to be listening to the other side. You don't go in just thinking everything I want. Honestly, the most successful negotiators that go in, walk away, you're more attentive to the needs, the wants, and what's being said on the other side. And you can figure out how to say it differently and walk away with, and everyone should walk away with a little bit of hurt. If you not walk away with a little bit of hurt, then that wasn't negotiation, right? Something's not there.
That's right. That's right.
And if this blink, I'm gonna just hit it back on. That's what the DSLR do. So I blink.
Okay.
But yeah, no, you don't. But a lot of people go in and they're just willing to say, I don't even. Did you see DMX rest his soul, the thing that they aired, the what do you call it, the biopic of DMX? It wasn't really even that. It was They did a thing on, was it Netflix I watched it on? It was right before he passed. They captured everything up until then.
Yeah, I did see that. I don't know what it was that it was on, but I did see that
Yeah.
too.
So did you see, I don't know if you remember the scene where there was a deal that he was signing. He had to meet with his attorneys and all that stuff, or his attorney. And they met in the room. And the attorney said, hey, okay, are you ready to sit down? You want to go over, what this says? And he said, no, let's just sign it. And it was whoever was part of his crew, the management said, no, we're going to go ahead and read it. So it doesn't matter how far you made it, what's going on. That's just sometimes our mentality is that let's just get it done. Right.
Yeah, correct.
Let's just, correct. I don't know what I gave up, give up everything. But then you're going to go point the finger at every single body that put it in front of you when your mindset was just, let's just sign, let's just go.
Well, the thing that I try to get across to artists that a lot of them don't realize is that everyone is in essence working for them. So if you don't get the best deal, it's really your fault. Like you're pointing at the attorney, but you're the person that instructs the attorney on what you want. And
absolutely.
So it's crazy to me because that's the first thing that artists do when it doesn't go in their favor. Oh, my manager, oh, my business accountant, oh, my attorney, like they start naming everybody, but at the end of the day, they all work for you. So
at the end of
if it's not going right, it's something that you're not doing.
Absolutely. Or even when we advise them or we say whatever, it's like goes in one ear and out the other. So my hopes is that we just start waking up with that. We really start listening to what's going on. We really start seeing what's going on and hopefully we wake up with that. If not, I don't know, just focus on the ones who are waking up. But for you, just like me, you work with diverse people, right? From your experience of working with just diverse people, I'm talking about women, men, Black, white, Hispanic, all that. Is there anything culturally different, or is that just something that we just say? Is it excuse we use? Is it something to it? Is it, I'll say what I think from my experience, but are there some, when I say cultural differences, like you may have more exposure to certain conversations or certain people or certain things, so you just think differently or whatever. What do you get from working with
that's actually an excellent question, and I think there are some differences, of course, just in terms of how people are raised, what their backgrounds are, what their experiences are. Some people come from different areas, different neighborhoods, so that changes their expectations. And so I definitely think there are some differences. I wouldn't say categorize it as my pop artists act this way or my hip hop artists act that way, but I think there are some cultural differences just based on how people grow up and what they're exposed to.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think the same thing too. But the one thing for me is I've seen people that come from backgrounds or experiences that you think they will make a decision one way, but they tapped in and figure out resources and they don't make a decision that way. Right? They didn't allow themselves to be a victim. They know what they want, right? And they just figure out how to know what I don't know. And they came from the same backgrounds of those who don't know. But then there's those who I don't know. And it's not so much I'm trying to figure it out. I just want to go. So I don't know if that's a personal thing, just something that I don't.
Well, that's the fame lure that I talk about all the time. A lot of those people just want to be famous. So to your point, it's like you put the agreement in front of them and they're saying, okay, does this get me on TV? Does this get me in a room with Jay-Z or whatever, and so they just sign or they don't even care about it. I see that I've seen that a lot of times.
Is that because that's what we're selling? Is that why what is
it's the lure of fame. It's the dangling carrot. You know what I mean? It's they just want to be famous. And so for that reason, it causes people to make decisions that don't always benefit them. I've had clients who have literally all the fame in the world, but very little money. So
that's
and it's crazy when you see that.
No, but those of us been injured, we know that's actually
more the case than not.
There you go. And that's what I try to tell people. It's more the case than not. It's not, listen. And my thing is, if you finally wake up and you at least got the fame, do something with that. Flip that. It's like real estate. So now what are you going to do with that? Right. So now that you have that, you can now, when you learn something, make it into something bigger and greater, right? Because perception's everything, you know?
And so to me, for that particular point, in business, we talk a lot about ROI, return on investment, right?
Yes.
But you very seldom hear people talking about ROC, return on community. So how does your success impact the community, and how can you use that to leverage your position in a way that it benefits the community? So I think for me, that's been something that I've sort of championed with artists that I've been working with, just to try to get them to think outside of the box. I mean, people talk about thinking outside of the box. It's one thing to be able to think outside of the box, but you have to understand the box before you can think beyond it. And so I'm talking about thinking beyond the box in a sense of, you say these things, you write these songs, you sing about these different categories, but what is that doing in terms of the community, and how can you do something impactful that's greater than yourself so that you can do something to change the world, so to speak? And that sounds, far out there and abstract, but ultimately that's what I'm hoping to do, is to get artists to start to see the return on community aspect.
And I was about to ask you that, like, what are you doing to get them to see that? Because let's speak about this word community. We're watching communities tear each other down. You're talking about give back to the community. We're robbing. There's talents and gifts that are, being pushed forth that could change the communities. And those exact talents and gifts are the targets that's being robbed from the community, not from anybody else, right? It's from the community. So speaking of this word community, and then secondly, you brought, think of music and how do you pour in and give back. And you talked about this before about immoral versus moral versus amoral. So kind of let's talk about that. Like, let's talk about, go back with the community. What are you even doing to have that resonate? Because it feels like, to me, we're desensitized, and it's almost like I just got to make it in my space. And if you cross over it, or if I feel threatened, that's a takedown community.
Well, I think it's the conversations and the way you have the conversation. So, for example, if you, in the hip hop community, they're generally covering maybe 5 topics. Drugs, sex, money, cars, and one other topic. Every song is kind of stemming around or coming from those areas. So it's okay to talk about those things because that's sort of current and it makes sense to talk about it. But how can you say it a little differently? When SWV said, sometimes it's soft as the misty rain that gently touches my soul. It's like, whoa, you thought about the misty rain touching your soul? Like, oh my God.
Right.
But that same song today is not as cleverly written because the songs are vulgar, and it's almost like pouring on records, unfortunately. And so what I try to do now is I try to plant the seeds with artists when I'm working with them to give them the perspective. Like, man, do you have to say it that way? Do you have to say it exact? Does it have to be delivered that way? I get what you're doing because that's what's happening right now. But how can we be a little bit more creative in the approach? And so I think it's like those small seeds that you plant that eventually lead to other scenarios and bigger, they grow into bigger areas. So that's kind of what.
There's power in words, like you said. And so we're doing that. But you talked about the immoral, amoral, sometimes music, even those power in words, it's what the listener sometimes take from those words and make it into themselves and then grow that thing. But I do think, because we have stories, right? I never want to push someone to say, okay, you got to sing about all the red roses and the blue and yellow lilies. Sure. You sing your story, but when we even tell our story, we always tell about how we want to make it out. Why do we just have to just tell it in a way as if it is a glorified thing when you're not really truly, that's not what we truly don't want to glorify certain things. Tell your story, but is there something else in there, how you say it? And is there an end game? Is there some type of deposit? Is there something that you can insert in these stories that are raw, real, and really happening? Or do we just sell off of something that just seems just entertaining, right?
Well, I think you also have to get the artists to the point where they understand what their impact is. I don't know that a lot of them understand the impact that they're making. They just figure they're doing songs.
They gotta know they know their impact. Okay, if they don't, everybody knows it but them. Because
That could be true, but I don't know that all artists really understand the magnitude or the level that they're at.
That the level they at.
When they're delivering these songs. I mean, for them, it's just, these are dreams. These are, people, have these dreams, and they're, like we talked about, being passionate. But I don't know that they always understand the connection and how that impacts the world outside of them. So they're doing songs for their neighborhood, but they're not realizing that song is going to touch the whole world.
The whole world. And the irony is, they're not the only, we all accountable, right? Because you'll have some that try to come out and do it a little differently, and they're not selling, or they're not getting the likes, or we supply and demand. We're speaking about what we want. In one breath, we're always talking about self-love. We got to stop this, stop the bullying. We talk all these things we say stop, we do. Everything that we hashtag, we do. Right? Yeah. So sometimes, yes, it's the artist, and we talk to the artists about it. And if artists do listen, they say, okay, you know what? I get it. I'm going to try this. They go try it, and it's like, now I'm struggling. Now, fan base not really following me. But if I just go say it this way, then it's fine until something happened. Now they're saying clean up the music. It's like we're dealing with a disease. We're dealing with this sickness. Yeah. We really are. So,
yeah, it's an interesting dichotomy, but I don't know. So you try to figure out the answers. The only thing I can do is sort of impact what I'm able to impact at my level. And I'm just, prayerful that God will continue to allow me to grow to higher levels where I can make a difference.
That's the answer. That's the answer that I found, because I got too overwhelmed being in, serving, right? You get overwhelmed. And I said, well, you know what? I have to focus on this client, this deal, this situation, this moment, and keep going that way. Because if I look far out, I'll probably hang up everything. Like, listen, y'all don't want this. You say you want it, whatever. We just
no question.
So that the situation after situation after situation. Then when we have things happen like the Nipseys and the Dolph and all these different people, like it gives you a little more spark. Like, come on, let's try a little bit more, digging a little deeper. What is it that we're missing? Because amazing people try to give back. Right? Try to do something, different. So, and we have all of them out there.
Yeah.
Man. What else? Listen, your book. First of all, you started with the 10 steps, but then it was one step I forgot to tell you about. Hold on. And that magic number 11, first of all.
So we started with the 10 steps to successfully manage and recording an artist. And then as I sort of grew throughout my career, I realized that there was this very, very important step that I did not mention, and that is the order of God, family, and work. And so for me, it was all like, hey, listen, I put it all in this pot and I stir it up, and I'll be looking at you like, don't be looking at my pot. And you're like, but, and I'm like, nope, don't be looking at my pot. I got this. I got it. Well, I didn't really realize the importance of order, and I say this all the time. You get a wife, a mansion, a Bentley, and if you don't maintain it, you get divorced, foreclosed, and repo. So it's not about getting it, it's about maintaining it. And so it was important that I talked about that in the 11th step, just the part of maintaining it. In 2008, I went down to Miami to speak at the GMWA, Gospel Music Workshop of America. Now, prior to that, if you were to say to me, how would I gauge my success in the music industry? I would say 3 things. I want a record company tour jacket because I saw my friend with one and I thought it was cool. I want to be able to call a label and someone on the other end picks up and knows who I am. And I want to be able to afford to take my kids to Disneyland. I figure if I accomplish those 3 things, man, I made it. I'm successful. So in 2008, I go down and do this presentation and I call my son up. And I said, yo, let's go to Disneyland. Let's go. And he's like, Dad, I'm 20. Or he was, 20, 21 or something. Nice. He's like, I'm 20. I don't want to go to Disneyland. And I'm like, what? Somewhere in my mind, 20 years went by and I didn't even realize it because I was on this hamster wheel trying to win a Grammy, trying to win a Dove, a Stellar Award. I had not even realized that all this time had went by And I'm thinking now I can finally afford to take my kids to Disneyland and pay for it. And he's like, yo, I don't want to go to no Disneyland. What are you talking about, son? So I go down, I do my presentation. I get back to my hotel room and I cry like a baby because I made it, but I made it by myself. That was never my goal. So what I know now is getting it is never the problem. If you're good, you're going to win a Grammy. That's more likely than not. That's probably what's going to happen. You're going to get nominated.
Exactly.
You're going to win a Stellar Award. You're going to win a Dove Award.
Exactly.
The thing of it is to be consistent and continue to move forward throughout the process, and so that's what the 11th step was about. I had to go back in and amend the 10 steps and add that because it's important that not only do you focus on those things, but you need to be really looking at the order of it all and maintaining that order.
Yeah, so I got that.
Because you're gonna get it.
You need to do an audio version of.
Yeah, no, I know. I will. I need.
You gotta do it because you know the industry that we serve, and so what I write, you listen. Everybody's not meet them where they're at. This is important for them to know, and it's not just for executives. It's not for people who's just on that side. Artists as well, things like that. Because one thing that's really pushed, especially for artists, is not to put the family and all that stuff up front. Just recently here, we started doing that and people started making that really popular, to show your family and stuff like that. But it was just like you just said, put your nose down and life pass you. And I know one of your favorite books is The Alchemist, right? And so it's not like you don't let, don't let life pass you by.
But it will, because we don't even realize it. We don't know that's happening. If I talk to my daughters, they're going to say, my dad was never there. I'm like, what do you mean? Yeah. I raised you since a kid all the way up through high school and college. But what they say is, in terms of the way that they wanted me to be there, because I was on the road, I was on tour, but I'm thinking every backpack, every pair of shoes, every pencil, like I made sure you had everything. But for them, the conversation is different. So, but of course you don't see that part, 'cause to my thing, it's like, hey, listen, I'm keeping the lights on. Meanwhile, I'm on tour and I'm doing all this other stuff and they're upset because I'm rolling around with an artist and they're saying, man, you care more about the artist than you care about me. And I'm like, this is what I do. Like what? But now I know if I had to do it all over again, I would have just found a way to include them and be focused in a way so that they knew that they were always top of the mind awareness, even though they were. For them, it didn't seem that way because I was gone a lot.
And I wonder if we can even figure out what that really would look like, because everybody still have their thing. When you think that you probably could have did it and it's still something else. That's the irony.
Perception.
It's perception. And everything that we've done was because we always probably said, oh, I want you to have this. I want this. It's always driven because of them. And then in hindsight, it's like, nope, I didn't have this. You didn't do this. You didn't. And he's like, what? Speaking of that, though, what I've learned in life, a really, really hard but fruitful lesson. One of the things I had always said was, the struggle I went through, I never want my kids to go through the struggle. And what I learned was that struggle made me. That struggle matured me. That struggle stretched me. And the things that I tried to shield from them and have them not experience sometimes was a handicap. Sometimes was interfering with their growth. The things that depreciation versus entitlement. And I think that's something that we need to just rethink, period. The people that we deal with.
Yeah. What I was able to do, to your point, is come to a realization that whatever their purpose is, that's God's purpose for them. So we see them in a certain way and we're trying to shape their purpose, but really they're going to be who God created them to be. So we were just the vessel that they would come through and to make sure that they get to where they're going. But ultimately their purpose is God's will.
God's will. We're just a guidepost. We can't, sometimes we're doing that. When I said, you're not going to experience this, I already just put on you something that wasn't for you. That's me. Right. I just supposed to be your guidepost and pay attention to what's going on and not necessarily be a complete interference, because that just messes things up. That's the same thing even with our clients too. I listen to them, I learn what are some things. I may look at something and be like, oh no, absolutely, I had to learn.
Sure.
It's not your thing. You give them everything to make an educated decision.
Exactly.
You can't force them. No, that's not your thing, and you're interfering.
Yeah, I had a situation where I was doing a deal once, And the attorney said to me, the deal was for $50,000, and it was much less than I knew that it should have been. But he said to me, it's not enough. And I looked at him and I said, are you going to give me the 50,000? He was so, and let me do this. I know what I need to do, because I'm making this move to make another move. I know what you're saying, but I know what I need to do. So
I learned that big time. That's huge. I learned that big time. I said, look, Ella, you can't go around here trying to save and make everybody think the way. No, give them every bit of information that they need to make an educated decision, and that they sleep with it. And if they can do that, you did your job, because you did empower them to make a decision. And that's what they feel empowered direction to go. And that was a big pill for me. So that's something I had to learn a lot. Serving on different platforms. Yeah. He said, are you going to give me that $50,000?
Yeah.
No.
Then I got this. Let me handle it. I know what I'm doing. Don't worry. I got it. We'll be fine.
Speaking of which, what are some of the ways artists could think about making money, right? So singing, having that talent to write and all that good stuff. What are just different ways that you can break down?
Well, for me now, I mean, my biggest selling point to the artist is that music sells everything except music, unfortunately. And so we now have to start to see ourselves as a brand and how we can leverage that brand. So the question becomes, can we call American Express, T-Mobile, Nike, and do this cool thing on Sunday while we listen to your music? So it's not so much about your music as it is your brand. That's why I think it's important how artists represent themselves, because in the future, you're trying to do those deals, but you're precluded because you've done something in the past that now that brand doesn't want to align with you. So you have to be thinking, the artist that I'm working with now, I'm saying, think beyond today. You got to be thinking, years down the road and how it's going to all line up. And you're going to get that Coca-Cola endorsement, or you're going to get that American Express deal. But you got to be making the moves now to be thinking about that. So I think for me, it's just really to think broader in the sense of you being an actual brand and aligning yourself with those major brands.
That was just a stepping stone. That's just something to kind of like open the door, that little key, but you got to put the furniture and everything up in there. So pretty much what you're saying is you're letting artists know you're running a business.
No, absolutely.
You're not going around just saying, I can rap, I can sing. Like, you literally just decided to start a business. You are an entrepreneur, and you have to figure out how you're going to grow your service and product. And it's everything is aligned. Everything's the same. Like you said, talking about the brand, a lot of people throw that away because we're just, using certain platforms and just jumping in saying, this is what everybody doing, I'm going to do it. No. You got to figure out what your brand is. Where do you see yourself? How far can you see yourself? How does that start right now?
Yeah, I had a friend who actually applied for a job at Sony, and they asked her to unblock her pages so they could see what she was posting.
Yikes.
So, yeah.
No, that's what, at least they asked her, because that's what jobs are doing, period. I try to tell people, forget that. That's what that's what attorneys do too. You helping us. Look, people solve cases. They call e-discovery.
Oh, I know.
They open up a whole new legal realm with e-discovery. So I tell people, when you think you're doing all this stuff, it's my page. No, you're on the universe. This is not, you can put it on your page, but it's everywhere. So you just have to be strategic in where you're trying to go. If it makes sense for you to do that, and that's okay. But if it doesn't, we can't be surprised and just think because so-and-so did it, it must be okay. And that's a problem a lot in our industries. When you watch somebody else do something, you think that now is okay, whatever it may be, whether you're sampling somebody, music, touching stuff, you always think if other people are doing this, it's okay. That's not the case.
It's not the case.
Not the case. Something you said, you may forget, I was going to go back to it. Gosh, dog it. But like you said that's music. You got to become that brand. So what, kind of like stretch yourself, look at performances, other people performing when you're not performing, right? So, maybe think about writing or co-writing, just different.
Or just even like similar artists that you can actually sort of hijack their base. So if you have an artist that's similar to you, you can sort of troll that artist and secure some of, because the likelihood of them being interested in you is highly probable if they like that artist and you're similar to that artist. So, just different things like that work as well.
So strategy, again, we're talking about business again. I think this is the key. What people are missing. When you're speaking of stuff, you're speaking about being a business. It's not
well,
just
the
about
thing
having
is,
talent.
it's at the end of the day, if I'm Lucian Grange or if I'm Doug Morris or one of those guys at the top of the label, it's a numbers game. And so I'm looking at the conversion rate, 3 to 7% that we can convert fans to followers. It's one thing to have a bunch of people following you, but it's another thing to have participative followers. So you want to be able to say, you know, meet me on 10th Street at 10 o'clock, bring 10 people and bring $10 each, and if you can do that, then you can sort of leverage that and create calls to action. And so if I'm one of the big people at the top as it relates to the labels, I'm just looking at numbers. I'm not even paying attention to your music. I'm going, okay, you have X and I can convert those people into this number. And that means that's this value. And so unfortunately, I think music suffers as a result a little bit, but it's just business. And we as creatives oftentimes have a problem seeing it as business because it's my music and I feel all fluffy and good. And this is how, but at the end of the day, somebody's going 1 bean, 2 beans, 3, and it just boils down to numbers. And if you can figure that part out, I mean, I can tell where an artist is by simply asking them one question. And I'll say, what's your website? And if they say something SoundCloud or Reverb Nation or something, then I know that they don't get it because Reverb Nation ain't your nation. MySpace ain't your space, right? When those particular, you remember when MySpace was popular and everybody was going, yo, check out my MySpace page. When's the last time you heard an artist say anything about MySpace?
Absolutely.
So you have to have your own place where you can create the narrative and you can draw traffic and create. The music business is 3 screens now: TV screen, computer screen, and telephone screen, and how effectively you engage those areas. And if you have not figured that out, it may take me a while to even get you to a point where you understand. Because if I say, what's your website? And you don't tell me something, yourname.com, then I'm like, oh man, this guy or lady don't even understand
where
we
at.
Understand.
Because you just said something really good, Cap. You just said you get to share your narrative. Because even when you're on these other platforms, first of all, we're constantly evolving. I can't even keep up. I'm like, TikTok, I'm still stuck on. I'm like, listen, you got to try to keep up. But also, if you don't have your own thing, you get shut down. You could have worked so hard to build all that you built. And there's people, what is the term that they use now? It's like when people try to search you up, because I know Nikki said it happened to her. There's one young girl who runs tracks that happened to her, but you can't, the name is blocked. Like your stuff doesn't show up on.
Oh yeah, I know what you're talking about. I know what it's the term fails me, but I know exactly what you're talking about. It fails me.
So all they can do is come and complain. So like what Beyonce did, I could put all my stuff on here, but Beyonce makes sure she put all her stuff on her website. She put the things she want to put on her website. So that thing is, you can create, control, all that good stuff, your narrative. You can have all these other good things to work in tandem with it, but when you completely rely on that, you get shut down.
Yeah, because the key is to create the 1-to-1 ratio from fan to you directly and to create the experience. And I think a lot of times when we look at the business, when people are sampling songs and they're trying to go back and create those experiences or create those moments. And so I think that, a lot of it is about the experience. Like we can all remember the very first time we heard a song, and every single time we hear a song, it takes us back to that very moment. Like I remember the first time I heard Flavor in Your Hair, I was traveling 64 westbound, headed into Richmond. I'm driving and it's like, and I'm like, whoa, I pulled my car off and he was like, ha. I didn't know what he was saying, but I was like, but so every time I hear that, I'm sorry.
But you felt it.
Yeah. Every time I hear that song, I think about that very moment when I pulled over on the side of the road and sat there going, what in the world it was incredible to me. But we all have songs like that create that experience. Yes. In fact, they talk about music being linked to time travel. If it's possible, they believe it's going to have some elements of music because it's the one thing that can transport you in time seamlessly. Like when you hear a song, you go right back to, 1981.
The smells, the emotion, you can see visually. It's amazing. It's powerful. It's music is so powerful, Cap. Like, do we really it's powerful?
No, absolutely. It transcends all barriers. A great song transcends all barriers. When, I Will Always Love You, when Dolly Parton does it, it's a country song. When Whitney Houston does it, it's a pop song. At the end of the day, it's just a great song.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Wow. But speaking of which, let me turn this about to click. Speaking of which, you mentioned figure out how to say what you need to say. Going back listening to songs that we used to listen to and didn't
sure. That yes.
What we were saying, listen, none of the stuff is new. Like you just, it's not new. We were singing things that now I'm hearing was like, Marvin.
Yeah, I think about Grace.
Marvin?
Yeah, I be thinking about Grace Jones when she said, "Pull up to my bumper in your long black limousine."
Man.
I'm like, oh, I didn't know that's what she was talking about.
Step back, you're getting a little close. She
said it though.
Feel that little poke.
Yeah, she said it so cleverly.
Yeah,
you didn't realize what she was saying. She's like, pull up to my bumper in your long black limousine, drive it in between. I'm like, whoa.
It's like, what? All these different things. And then I even did some research because someone played a little bit on social media. I'm talking about going back.
Yeah.
Ron, when they did say, when they, I was like, what?
Absolutely. I think I know what song what song you're talking about.
I was like, okay. This is definitely not new, y'all. Like, no, we actually got a little bit better from then. But yeah, music is powerful. Like you said, it could bring you back. Using it as an athlete, it changes the heartbeat, endorphin, all these different things. It can put you in moods, get you out of moods.
Yeah, absolutely.
Man, so much. So, if we just get that part and realize the power artists have with just music alone. Like you said, a lot of people don't realize it though. Don't realize the power that they have in words, but I also don't think they realize the power in music that's universal, that heals the world, as Michael would say. It's something about Michael. I don't know why. I listen to all his stuff. It's another level for me when I'm hearing his vocals and his my his song. Michael's that person that I could write books to, that I can just get into that's how powerful it is. So for each person, maybe something different, but that music transcends music to me. It's some other energy when I listen to him.
Yeah. No, Michael's amazing. I had the pleasure of working with Michael. So I actually went to Neverland, which is pretty incredible.
Woo!
So
I can only imagine just sitting there looking like, speaking of which, Janet Jackson has her, I can't wait for this documentary to come out. I hope it is as great as I think it looks to be.
I think it's coming out next week, right?
It's coming out next week, the 28th? 20 something, yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So it was funny because I don't know if you've seen when they released the whole thing, they talked about the Super Bowl. She pretty much was shutting it down. I ain't talking about it. I'm past that. But then when I seen the preview of the documentary, oh no, she just gonna talk about it on her turn. Like, what did Janet say? I'm in control. I love it. These are the things that we need to learn when we're watching artists and watching people in the game, watching the things that Jay-Z do, the things that Janet and MC Lyte, all these people doing. Watch those things that they're doing where they're maneuvering, going next level and having control.
When I was at Neverland, right, I was talking to someone and they said, you see that right there? And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, that's Mount Catherine. I'm like, Mount Catherine? He named the mountain after his mother. Wow. But I'm like, you can buy mountains? I didn't know you could buy mountains. Like, what conversation is that? Like, yo, throw those in. Let me get those. Like, I thought God owned the mountains. I'm like, Michael owned the mountains?
That same conversation he had when he said, oh, really? Give me the Beatles catalog. Or really, Eminem? You gonna say that? Give me your catalog. Like, no. But he had those conversations. He had those conversations. Speaking of which, Prince, I don't know if you just seen, they finally, long battle in court to settle the whole thing. They finally settled it where they're splitting up the money he left. His thing was, I think he intentionally didn't want to do a will. Like,
I'm very surprised that guy wouldn't have a will.
No, because if you look at Prince was free. Prince was.
I get it.
You see what I'm saying? I'm here. I do my thing here, and that other stuff, no. But I still do think he will be tossing and turning to know that the record label got split
yeah, no question. He'd be
that money
pissed
that was
about
out there.
that.
He would be pissed. That was his thing. But no, I think he intentionally did it. But speaking of which, we need to do better with that, Cap. We need to do better with that.
No question. No
Even
question.
if it's a simple will.
Yeah.
Talking about DMX. Talking about those people we don't think, we know we're gonna go. We don't.
Yeah, people walk around as if they're not gonna die. No one gets out alive.
No one gets out alive, but I think we think we're gonna go when we think we're gonna go. I don't know.
Okay, so look at it this way. Everyone alive right now will be dead in 130 years.
Yeah, but don't see, if you say that, people be like, well, I don't care. I got time. I got 100 something years. I ain't writing a will. They need to write that will, like, even for something on a piece of paper that's simple, like yesterday. Oh, can you hear me? There you go. Okay. Yes, we got to write something, even if it's something simple direction, because not just leaving stuff, right? Some people might even think, I don't have nothing really to leave. I'm not writing. You have the orderly of how to even deal with you to leave.
Correct.
We leave families break. Even if you write instructions on, hey, just cremate me and let it go. You know what I'm saying? Like, we need to have our last will, testament, whatever that may mean. And I don't think we don't talk about that.
Well, the thing that gets me is that people don't even have, like, they're spending $5 a day at Starbucks on a cup of coffee, but won't pay $15 a month for burial insurance. Like, that blows my mind. So people are having GoFundMe's and, bake sales and stuff. I mean, it's like, come on, man. Like, that part,
And some people think that if you do that stuff, it's them accepting, if I talk about a will, if I write a will, if I get these insurances, it's me somehow saying it's going to happen. No, it's going to happen.
No question. No, you just don't know when.
You just don't know when, but more so in our sports and entertainment and all that good stuff, you'd be so surprised. You're not going to be surprised, but people will be so surprised that no one's thinking about that until you hear that they go. I mean, even look at situation that happened with Aretha Franklin trying to figure all that stuff out. It's so much. People that you do think is meticulous, there's just these things. Because I guess at the end of the day, we still those human beings that come from whatever experiences. It doesn't change us because we have this gift, because we so-called made it in people's eyes. We're still those people. We sit down with some of the people that's considered big wit. They don't know a lot. There's things that they don't. They're still that.
Oh yeah,
thing.
That's very
true.
Yeah, that's very true. Yeah, I'm actually surprised by that often.
Yes,
just to see people that I thought would know that don't know. Yeah,
that don't know a lot of things. You sit there and you scratch your head like, wow. But at the end of the day, they just made it with the thing they have. Doesn't change any of that other stuff.
Correct.
At all.
Yeah.
Well, this was good. If you was to be, before we wrap it up, if you was to be a superhero, something that you could do and you had this power to just change something, that thing, before you exit, what would that be?
I would get rid of sin. I think everything revolves around sin. And so if there were no sin, then we wouldn't have any disease or people wouldn't die. Like, I think sin is the sort of catalyst for all those things. Everything revolves around sin. So I would get rid of sin.
Oh, wow. That's deep. I've never heard of that. It takes the guru to think deeply. And that's what I look at you as. Listen, you're not just a music industry executive. You're an industry guru. When I say guru, defined words, a guru is someone who sheds light in darkness. And from all of your experience, there's so much that you can shed light on so many people, just personal, like how we're talking about. It's not just about an industry. Like, it's our life. It touches on so many different areas of our life, family life, and just the things that we learn. So you that music industry was sin.
No, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, I appreciate
absolutely, that. Absolutely. All right. So again, guys, I want you to get that book. Cap is gonna eventually do that audio version.
Yes.
But in the meantime, get that. It's 2 of them. The first one was the
10 steps to successfully manage recording artists. And
recording artists.
And the second one is the 11th step I missed.
The 11th step you missed. So would you say get both, or the second one has all the 10 steps and you added that 11?
Correct. Yes. Yes. The second one has all of the 10 steps and then I added the 11th step.
So I already got the other book though. I got the 10 steps. So
no, I appreciate the support.
Listen, I already got that. So I gotta go back and I'm gonna have to get the other book so I can read the 11th step. I don't care how you tell me. And that's another thing, people. You have to digest things for yourself. So we share things and we can say stuff, but you have to process things and do your work, due diligence, invest in yourself. As he said, return on investment, return on community. You can't return anything if you're not going in and getting it to flip it. We're always talking about flipping stuff. And we know, listen, in the streets, we know how to flip things. We know how to flip houses. We know how to flip the gift, the talent that you give, and read. I would definitely get that book, research people, and learn more than just the talent and gift that you're given. Is there anything that you want to say in closing?
No, I think I just had a great time. I appreciate the opportunity and I look forward to doing many more in the future.
Absolutely. All right. So we'll catch up.
Okay.
But that is it. Thank you so much for giving your time. This was Return on the Community, guys. Humility, humble, amazing person. As they will say, Google me.
Nice.
So that's that. I'm saying that for you. Google me. So that you, with him giving his time and just sharing, and myself as well, I hope you do something with it. Be safe and God bless.